Hello, welcome back to my channel. Elkenaga, the voice out. Moi ajibi aro ekta kobala ahi ase. Moi aji kobala thaka do hole to ekta maki laga story moi kobala ahi ase. Tai itu dunia porat ke koi dibi hoigine tai koi dia laga itu hisab para moi kobala ahi ase. Itu boot itu likhi dia mano to tai likhi dise. Holebi moi itu aji tai laga story itu kan to world de itu spread kori dibole moi ahi ase. Kila mana ita YouTube platform itu ekdom dangor platform ekta ase. Itu world te sob huniwa pare laga platform ekta ase. Itu ba tai koi nishina moi itu koi dibole moi ahi ase. Tai ko to ina koise. Tell it my son, tell it to the world so that our pain and our humiliation would not have been in vain. Inaga tai koi gina ase. Tai laga nam to holo to Mayangkokla inaga ase. Tai aw maki ase. Aro itu tinjon thakise taijon. Eta to holo to itu kikamomba aro eta to holo to markoba inaga ase. Tai tinjon ke itu nag India army kan turi lo laga ekta ase. Aro tai kan itu morning da uthi kine itu nagarmi kan kang korea itu kan modop koribole thaka tamde India army kan do ahi kine ta kan ke turi lo laga ase. Itu satam de itu maki to ekdom active manu ekta ase. Makan itu bra janise. Tai maki holebi jalti uthi kine itu naga manu ke modop korola thaka ekdom brief maki ase ekdom active maki ase makan tate bra janibo pare ase. Jora moi aji tai laga history tai laga story itu kaka di iralu tai bara likhi dia laga moi olop share koribole moi ahi ase. Itu laga do hole do February 24 1957 dinte ase. Around 6:30 am itu tamde India army kan tai kan ke thuri loise. Thuri logi ne ta kan ke mari kine itu church compound te ahise koise. Aro church compound da aha tamde taka laga kapara khan to half naked kori dise. Aro taka itu pichite taka laga kapara khan sob maki laga do sob naked kori digine. Itu army khan to one by one tai ke rape kori dia laga ekta ase. Ekdom morong kore laga ekdom bear koribala napara laga history ekta ase. Apni kan tit hoine bi. Aro public khan laga age te he India army khan ahi kine tai ke one by one rape kori dia. Bosti manu kan ekdom sabole napare laga. Tai laga matha bosti manu kan laga matha kan sob niche kore laga. Ida situation lot pa ase. Itu laga history itu laga story dikhe tamde ekdom mon bikha ine puri bole napare laga ekta history ase. Itu ra moi aji itu naga manu kan guess koi di bole mon hoi kine moi ahi ase. Bishi manu bi itu la history na janibo. Itu ra moi naga manu pura ke moi koi di bole aji do ite ahi ase. Inaga hoine tai ekdom bikhai kine ekdom duk pai kine tai kandi kine thaka tamde ekta amma bra tai ke itu kapara ekta loi kine tai ke jai kine bong kurise. Aro tai utha bole try kore tamde itu India army komba bia manu bia kam ta ke lode na kore khan aro ta laga bundut para aro mari di kine tai ke unconscious kori di kine aro bi bia kam ta lode kore ngan itu bi dikhi paise. Ekdom morom laga ekta kotha ase. Aro inaga hoine ta kan ke logina itu army camp te loi jaise. Ta kan ke itu blindfolded soko bandi kine ta kan ke logina aro ta kan army camp ke loi jaise. Aro itu pichite bi itu maki ke Mayangkokla ta ke army la camp de he ta ke rape kori thaka repeatedly ta ke rape kori thaka magan itu huni paise. Magan itu satam de ekdom mon duk holaga ekta history ase. Moi itia itu English de tai kinaga likhi kine ase kaka di iralu para kina likhi kine ase moi itia koi dibo. Moi puri kina bunga ka dakhai dibo. Tell it my son, tell it to the world so that our pain and our humiliation would not have been in vain. Mayangkokla, a rape victim's story. February 24, 1957. February 24, 1957 was a cold and chilly day in Uma village. In spite of a cold, Mayangkokla, Kikamomba and Markoba, the GB of the village, were up very early. As members of the volunteer group, they were going to help build a camp for the home guards of the Naga army. Among them, Mayangkokla was a very beautiful woman of the village. Around 6:30 a.m., just as they were about to leave the village for the assigned work, their home was suddenly surrounded by a contingent of the Jet Regiment under the command of Major Triloksin. Some traitors must have reported on their activities because the officer in charge didn't even bother to interrogate them or ask them their names. They were beaten immediately with rifle butts and army boots. In about 15 minutes, their clothes were all torn and they were bleeding profusely from the many cuts and bruises. Next, they were marched almost half naked to the church situated about 100 yards from the site of their capture. On the way, some of the soldiers started molesting Mayangkokla, whose battered body was now quite exposed. Everywhere, frightened villagers scattered in all directions as the procession wound its way toward the church. When they reached the church compound, Mayangkokla was stripped completely naked and in full view of the remaining villagers. The soldiers raped her one after the other. The orgy continued for at least an hour, as the soldiers one after the other vented their lust on her beautiful body. The villagers could not bring themselves to watch this sadistic sight and turned their heads away. They were all seized with terrible anger, but none could do anything, as all the soldiers were armed to the teeth and cocked guns were pointed in their direction. For Mayangkokla, this was a nightmare she could not believe was really happening. It was a desecration of her womanhood, a violation of her very humanity. Her strain of pain and cries for help were finally answered when an old woman, unable to bear the sight anymore, came running out from a house with a cloak to cover her nakedness. She pleaded and tried, "Please, no more. You have done enough." As she tried to push her way into the circle of soldiers, she was met with a battery of blows from rifle bolts and barrels. There were still some soldiers had not taken their turn. As they floored the old woman unconscious on the ground, bleeding profusely, they continued their orgy. Both Kikomamba and Markaba were standing near the sand under guard. They had turned their heads away, and both were trying unable to do anything to save their sister. When the soldiers were finished, Kikomamba and their now almost unconscious Mayangkokla were dragged inside the church. Kikomamba was ordered to remove his torn clothes. Here he fearfully obeyed. They were then ordered to commit sexual intercourse on the floor of the church. However frightened they were, both of them refused to comply to this. They pleaded, "Please do not make us do that. This is the house of God, and we could be committing an unpardonable sin if we would do this inside the church." To this plea, the officer shouted an order, and several soldiers combated with the fencing posts of the church. Their already lacerated bodies received another rain of blows from the heavy posts. The pain was so unbearable that they finally obeyed. As they were lying together thus, the soldiers formed a circle around them and laughed. Some of them clapped, while others shouted, "Chabas, well done." Next, all the three of them were tightly bound by ropes and blindfolded and taken to an army camp. When their blindfolds were removed, they found themselves inside some cells. It was only here that the interrogation began. They were very badly beaten again, as unintelligible questions were asked of them. When nightfall came, some of the soldiers came in and dragged out Mayangkokla from the cell, pinning her against the walls and on the floor. She was repeatedly raped. In the 1 week that they were kept inside the army outpost, this sadistic ritual was repeated again and again and yet again, sometimes even in the daytime. By the third day, Markova, the GB, the oldest among them, had gone insane. He began to strain and shouted like a wild animal penned inside a cage. Even after they were released, Markova never recovered his sanity. He died a madman. 41 years later, on February 23, 1998, I met Mayangkokla at Uma village. I had already read her story from some atrocity reports. As I entered her bamboo and thatch house, I found her sitting huddled in a corner of her bed. Her hair was now silvery gray and wrinkles lined her face. Her back was severely bent, but despite her advanced age, her face still held traces of former beauty, and her tall figure showed that she must have been indeed a lovely woman in her youth. I sat down on her bed and took her wrinkled hand in mine. Her old but still lovely eyes bored into mine and asked, "Are you really Pizzo's grandnephew? Are you really Dr. Civilia's grandson?" For my grandfather had been one of the first Angami doctors who served in our region in the late 1940s. She continued, "I know both your grandfather and your granduncle. They were wonderful people." Still holding her hand, I told her, "Grandmother, I have already read your story for some reports, and I am very sorry for what was done to you." I went on, "You don't have to narrate the details to me, but I have come here to tell you that I will avenge your humiliation. I will do that by writing your story so that the world will condemn those who had perpetrated this heinous crime on you." Tears glistened in her eyes as she grabs my hand tightly and said, "Son, it has been now more than 40 years, and in all these years no one has ever come to me with such words of sympathy. I have borne the burden of that nightmare experience all alone all these years. I see them in my dreams and wake up screaming. I see them even when I was awake. I will tell you all, my son." And after telling me the details, she said, "Now I can die in peace, for you have taken it away from my mind." She concluded by saying, "Tell it, my son, tell it to the world, so that the pain and the humiliation that we suffer for our nation would not be in vain." Tai naga likhi gina ase. Itu kaka di ira lubara itu laga boot inaga likhi na thaki ase. Magan itu satam de poila manukan do beshi du pai gina naga nimite nakan fight kurina thaka magan itu bara dikhi paise. Busti manu hobi kon hobi public manu sod bi itu NSC itu naga nimite fight kure laga sod manu mon digine naga manu ke modo kurina aha laga ase. Magan independence itu manigina sovereignty itu manigina aha khan ase. Ajikali khan itu manya laga itu laga na hoy. Holebi magan itu full fledged independent itu manigina sacrifice kurigina aha laga ase. Itu laga boots para magan itu story alak bishe ase. Magan pichide eita hoina saigina hibo. Ma ji discuss kura to hite bara charibo. Sot manubi timbal thakibi. Thank you all. God bless Nagaland. Aru last day moi eta koi thake. Don't forget to speak your native language.